we're also going through another huge megatrend, which is where our personality self which has been gestating in what is sometimes called lifetimes, is developing in a womb. It's like the atmosphere of the earth. It's like a womb. And it's developing over what we call lifetimes. And that's, as you know, a discussion that we've kind of had before. It's a pretty in-depth discussion what that really means. We also understand that when people talk about lifetimes, a lot of times they're trying to lay it out on a linear timeline, and it doesn't really work that way. It's more in a present time continuum that this takes place. Our personality self is gestating. And this is creating ultimately what happens with a fetus. It develops over time. It develops certain attributes, certain ability to function, digestive system, nervous system, etc. And then when it hits a certain point of maturity, birth takes place from the mother's womb. And so we could then expand that concept and make it nonlinear and begin to understand that we have been in a gestation as human beings. For those human beings that are ready and mature, what's taking place now, and this is a megatrend, spiritual birth. So we are emerging from a womb. Now, if you think about the stages of birth, of course there's the pregnancy. But when birth starts to take place, it can happen really over quite a few days. Changes start to take place. There's a certain kind of movement, acceleration. When it gets closer to it, then the mother can feel certain types of contractions. They may not be the contractions of the birth, but they're kind of like preamble to it. Then when it gets closer, there's all kinds of hormonal changes. There's this miraculous shift in the pelvic structure of the mother. There's changes in the fetus, getting ready for breathing air instead of like taking in oxygen through the blood. It's really an amazing, miraculous process that takes place. There's like a transmutation. There's really a shape-shifting that takes place on a lot of different levels, chemically, physically, and vibrationally. And so then during the process, you get the contractions. That's after the fetus has turned. You've got the head that starts to emerge. Then you have the crowning. And then at a certain point, the baby slips through the birth canal. This is the ideal scenario on a smooth birth. Now we know that there's births that are difficult, births that don't quite complete. So these are all variables that we could consider. But just to understand that for each person, and as I mentioned many times in the past, the people that would even be attracted to practicing light body work or listening to or participating in a dialogue about the light body activation are already in a more advanced stage of this spiritual birth. Your fetus has turned, or you could say that, the crown is starting to show through the birth canal. Now, we can't calculate this in earth time, in linear time, but nonetheless, we can catch this in present time, how this is happening, the sequences that are coming into places, how the tumblers are locking into place to allow us to emerge. As the baby comes through the birth canal, what does it see? What is it able to do? Now, we can't say that it's exactly the same because we really enter this life with very little power in terms of being able to do anything for ourselves. That may not be necessarily true with the spiritual birth. But definitely what we've been doing with the light body work is learning how to regulate the faculties of the light body. It's like when the baby opens its eyes and starts to recognize shapes. At first it just sees like blurs. It doesn't know what those blurry forms are, or it hears sounds. There's still water in the ear canal, so the sounds are kind of muffled and they're filtered. And so after some time that water dissipates, the eyes become clear, the forms become clear, the baby starts to make sounds, the baby starts to make movements, and you know how this progression occurs. But I think it's really helpful to review that from time to time. All the different nuances of the baby developing in the womb, how things shift. There's like a incremental shift that takes place as it shifts into the birth process. And then after birth, the certain stages of development and being able to utilize the physical body, which was the thing that formed in the womb, and it formed for us to be able to do things, learn things, create things in this physical world. It was our vehicle. And then while we're here and gestating in this nonlinear lifetime scenario, we're also then developing apart. The body becomes like a placenta. And within that placenta is developing something that will be our vehicle after the next birth. And we'll still go through gestation. We'll still go through a birthing process that has different stages to it. And once we're born, we'll go through stages of recognition. And it's not going to be exactly like that because this is a linear model to some degree. And what we're talking about is a shift into something that's not linear. But it's a good framework to begin our understanding of what's happening to us. So a lot of the work that we did up till now, it was to keep us balanced and harmonized in this earth plane while we're developing in this womb for the spiritual birth. It was also to become aware of the faculties of that emerging light body. So we were working with the kundalini, the chakras, and these are all the faculties. It's like our arms and our legs. It's like our muscle system that we will be exercising as this birth takes place, as we move into this next dimension. And how do we recognize what is this dimension? What do we do there? Certainly when we're born as a human baby, we don't know about, well, we're going to have to do some work, or we're going to have to play games, or we're going to have to put clothes on. We don't know any of that. We don't know about eating. We don't know about anything that we're going to do. So it's step by step, incrementally discovering and recognizing, and then learning how to interact. So this is a big part of the theme that I wanted to work with today. All these tools that we've developed, and I'll talk about some variations in how we can use those tools, but that what you could consider in how you will recognize and learn to interact with this new dimension.